Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Farmers Insurance Open Data Dive Show. We've got a lot to get into, so I don't want to waste any time, so let me rattle through this intro. Quick reminder that tomorrow will be the DFS Tactics show. Still not sure on what time, as I have a fantasy golf draft tomorrow evening with a lot of the friends off stream. So give me a follow over at social media if you want to be kept up to the minute on the schedule for tomorrow, and if you want to see that draft live, or if you want me to record it, make sure you put it in the comments or reach out to me on social media, and I will make that available to you all. Which reminds me, most importantly, that the Farmers runs Wednesday to Saturday this week, so we only have 2 days now to get our lineups in. So all of the statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there at your disposal. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, much better DFS player. Go check them out. It is well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. I've mentioned Twitter and Instagram. This is where I will update my schedule, of course, tomorrow. I posted some research today regarding former winners here at the Farmers Insurance Open. So if you want to see that, give me a follow there. And then the link to Twitch is also in the description. This is where I do all of my in-depth research and where I critique my previous week's performance. So I did that as well this morning with the American Express, my lineups, my mixed condition model, all of that. And then once baseball starts, I will have a lot of content for baseball over on Twitch, as well as my kind of alternate stuff, gaming and whatnot. So if you want to see that content, give me a follow over at Twitch. And then Twitter is also where I post my betting cards. I will have that up tomorrow evening before the Farmers Insurance after the show. So it's going to be a very late night tomorrow, but that will be up tomorrow evening. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. How much have you all looked at the odds boards today? I took a quick look. Have not fired any wagers off, to be honest with you. I did not like my initial findings on players and their numbers. But so, how much have you all looked at the odds boards? I'm actually going to bring up the DraftKings prices tonight. I normally don't do that on the Data Dive show, but with one less day, figured it would be prudent to do so. So let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2023 Farmers Insurance Open. And we're going to start over at Fantasy National. Slight pause there, build some suspense for what I don't really know, but build suspense. Anyway, you see that I have set this for the entirety of 2022 and the now 3 tournaments that have been loaded into Fantasy National for this year. So the American Express is in here. You see John Rahm, #1 in strokes gained total. His price is through the roof, to be expected. But I've got my default filter set. First thing that I want to do, we looked last night at how difficult Torrey Pines, especially Torrey Pines South, is. So in 2022, plus the 3 tournaments this year, your top performers in rounds that are difficult have been Will Zalatoris, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, Sungjae, Tony Finau, John Rahm, Max Homa, Adam Hadwin, Brendan Steele, and Colin Morikawa. So that is one aspect that we took a look at last night. Another aspect that we looked at, especially for Torrey Pines South, over 7,400 yards. Torrey Pines is 7,700 100 yards and will play as such because it is flat. It's just long and brutal course. Your top performers when a course is long in 2022, plus 3 tournaments this year: John Rahm, Will Zalatoris, Colin Morikawa, Cameron Percy, Sung Jae, Johnny Vegas, JJ Spawn, Bo Hostler, Gary Woodland, and Michael Kim. And then lastly, what I want to look at in terms of review-ish from last night, let's look at some POA putting, and specifically around fast and lightning POA green putting. And I'm going to have to expand the timeline here. There just aren't a lot of POA greens on the PGA Tour. I went through the ones that are on the PGA Tour last night, but as a quick refresher, if you want to get a gauge and see who historically has putt well on POA, take a look at some of these tournaments. This would be the WGC Mexico at Club de Chapultepec, Detroit Golf Club, and then the entirety of the Pebble Beach tournament, Pebble Beach, Monterey Peninsula, Spyglass Hill, TPC River Highlands has had their greens classified as POA in the past. And then lastly would be Riviera and the Genesis Invitational. So those are the courses that have had POA greens, at least classified POA greens. But your top performers on fast and lightning speed POA greens since the beginning of 2021, those players are Bryce Garnett, Xander Schauffele, Satoshi Kodaira, Sung Jae, Wyndham Clark, Taylor Montgomery, Harris English, Bill Haas, Maverick McNeely, Ryan Armour, and William McGirt. So there's a look at some putting metrics, and we're going to be looking at a little bit more of that a little bit later on, specifically around 3 putts. But I want to remove those filters. Let's take a look at some other things here in the strokes gained page view very quickly, because I am very anxious to look at some prior leaderboards and to decipher what we want to focus on this week, tomorrow, for the mixed condition model. So again, we'll come back to the beginning of 2022. I'm going to look at scoring when it is difficult as opposed to long. You can absolutely do both. I'm going to focus more so on when a round is difficult. When a round is difficult, your top strokes gained approach players in 2022: Max Homa, Brendan Steele, John Rahm, Lee Hodges, Will Zalatoris, Siwoo Kim, Adam Schenk, Xander Schauffele, Johnny Vegas, and Cam Davis. And if we just scroll across here very quickly, Siwoo is top 10 in both irons or approaches and around the green. Adam Hadwin is 11th and 4th, so needs to be mentioned as well. Sung Jae, 15th and 5th. So there's 3 names there for you that are good in both, or good to elite in both strokes gained approach and strokes gained around the green when it's difficult. And I do believe we looked at strokes gained around the green in long rough last night as well. So I'll leave that for you to look at that video from last night after the show this evening. But I do want to look at strokes gained around the green when it's difficult as well. I do not believe we did this last night. So your top strokes gained around the green players when a round is difficult: Rory Sabatini, Siwoo Kim, Bill Haas, Adam Hadwin, Sung Jae, Ben On, Aaron Baddeley, Dean Burnester, Peter Malnati, Ryan Armour, and Stefan Jaeger. Those are your top 10 strokes gained around the green players when it's difficult. And I think that's going to be it in terms of review from last night. Let me grab some notes here. We didn't go through the Torrey Pines North course breakdown, but I definitely gave you the numbers in terms of holes across all three courses last week for the American Express. So let me do that for you right now for Torrey Pines South and North. So again, this is the Torrey Pines South hole composition. And we're going to add to that the Torrey Pines North. So Torrey Pines North has 3 par 3s that measure 200 to 225 and 1 from 225 plus. So you have half of your par 3s measure here, 3 more here, so 7 of the 8 par 3s on the scorecard for the Farmers Insurance measure 200 plus. So we're definitely going to be putting a lot of emphasis on long par 3s if there is any par 3 emphasis this week. It'll be on these long par 3s. And then Torrey Pines South is the only one that has the 175 to 200. Moving into the par 4s, Torrey Pines North actually has 2 drivable par 4s, 0 to 350, which isn't being shown here. Again, this is just the South course's hole composition, but across both you will have 2 from 0 to 350. You will have 2 total from 350 to 4, so you have another 1 at Torrey Pines North in this range. You have 2 more Torrey Pines North, 400 to 450, and you have 5 from 450 to 500. So again, 11 of the 20 par 4s at the Farmers Insurance Open are going to measure from 450 to 500 on the scorecard. So that is going to be the emphasis in par 4s this week, is this 450 to 500. And then lastly, for Torrey Pines North par 5s, you have 3 that are 500 to 550, and that's why they are a lot. That is where the eagle chances are, and that's why they are absolutely must birdie holes, because they are the shortest par 5s at the tournament, the easiest par 5s of the tournament. So 3 par 5s that measure 500 to 550. You've got 1 additional from 550 to 600. So 3, 3, and 2 across both courses. So hopefully that gives you the information that you need for Torrey Pines North in terms of a course or hole composition. I absolutely wanted to make sure I made you all aware of that. But let's go ahead and start moving into some of these prior leaderboards, as they are pretty interesting. And we're going to start with the birdies and bogeys. And I spent a little bit of time last night, especially in Microsoft Excel, talking about, even though this is a difficult course, birdies gained is still more important than the bogeys avoided. And you see, last year we'll do the top 15, again, just for ties. You only have 1 player that was negative in birdies. It was a very low in birdies gained, minus 3.3. But you did have 2 that were bogeys avoided. The top number in birdies gained was a 9 versus an 8.1 in bogeys avoided, and much less correlation. Sure, you start off 6th, 2nd, and 11th for bogeys avoided, but look at the birdies gained. 11th, 6th, 1st, 6th, 6th, 11th, 6th, 3rd. Much stronger correlation for birdies gained. And eagles. There's a little bit of factor for eagles. Will Zalatoris had quite a few eagles last year. Aaron Rye had a few eagles last year. McNeely, Thompson. So eagles were a little bit of a thing thanks to the North Course. You have to take advantage of it. We'll move to 2021. And birdies and bogeys. Again, looking at the top 15, just due to ties, nobody Nobody is negative in terms of birdies gained versus 2 that are negative and bogeys avoided. You have an 8.6 leading with this correlation. Bogeys avoided, 7.6, and a whole lot less correlation, a whole lot less double digits and higher double digits. So hopefully that is apparent for you. And 2020 is more of the same. And before I forget, we'll look at Eagles. Again, a decent little bit of a factor here of the players that gained quite a bit of Eagles. They were all making the cut. You had your winner up here. But there's a decent sized number in this Eagles gained category. I am still debating with myself if I want to do birdies or better gained, or if I want to separate out Eagles and birdies. Be curious to hear from you all. Put it in chat or put it in the comments. But we move to this year's field. Now, I'm going to look at this a couple of different ways, but I believe the most important way is going to be scoring, because we're looking at scoring metrics. So, win around is difficult to par. Your top birdies or better gained players since the start of 2022 have been Will Zalatoris, Lonto Griffin, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Keegan Bradley, Sung Jae, MJ Duffy, Kirk Kitayama, Adam Hadwin, and Aaron Baddeley. So we're getting a lot of overlap already in terms of difficulty around the green, approach, and now with birdies or better. P, welcome. Thanks for jumping in chat. Hopefully your week has went well and that you have remembered that the Farmers Insurance Open is starting on Wednesday this week, and have made your adjustments as such. But always good to see you in chat, and always good to interact with you over on the Twitters. You have made some pretty hilarious statements lately. I approve. But welcome. Thanks for jumping in. If we're going to look at Eagles when it's difficult, actually, I tell you what, because Eagles only really come at the North Course, I would put that on easy. But I really, the more that I think about it, the more I'm kind of talking through it, I'm probably just going to keep birdies or better gained when it's difficult. Seems to make the most sense because 3 of the 4 rounds will be at Torrey Pines South. Did not realize Wednesday start. Yeah. The PGA does not want to butt heads or compete against the NFL playoffs. Makes a lot of sense. So this is going to be the second straight year that the Farmers moves to a Wednesday to Saturday start, or Wednesday to Saturday timeline with a Wednesday start. So you have 24 less hours to get your wagers in, submit your lineups and all that. But as I'm sitting here talking through this process with you on, that's why I love to, I love doing what I do, and why I put it out there, is that it allows me to talk and formulate a plan with you all live going through this. And now that I'm thinking about it, I still think I just want to do birdies or better, but this time when a round is difficult due to Torrey Pines South specifically. But you can also look at birdies or better when a course is long. Absolutely. Well within reason to do so. So your top birdies or better gained players when a course is long, again defined by Fantasy National as over 7,400 yards. Those players are John Rahm, Justin Thomas, Bo Hostler, Adam Hadwin, Colin Morikawa, J.J. Spawn, Cameron Percy, Will Zalatoris, Maverick McNeely, and Lonto Griffin. So again, lots of overlap here. No surprise, John Rahm Adam Hadwin on long courses, and now on difficult courses, now on long courses, birdies are better. Colin Morikawa, Will Zalatoris, these players have played the Farmers Insurance very, very well. Sungjae lurking just outside the top 10. Lonto Griffin is in the top 10 in both. So yeah, good stuff here in terms of scoring for the two courses here at Torrey Pines. We move to driving, and I will reset the year and go to the correct page view. Driving statistics, and we talked about how distance is going to matter, but we also looked last night in Microsoft Excel how you had some outliers, particularly low outliers in good drives gained in greens and regulation. Look here, good drives, only 2 negative. In greens, you only had 3 negative. Driving distance, you had 4 negative, but Billy Horschel was minus 3.2 over 4 rounds. That's essentially field average. So, if we sort on these particular metrics, driving distance, you do have your cut makers, and then Bryson, who's always going to be positive in distance, and then a decent little amount of success here. So I would say lukewarm correlation in distance. Good drives, you've got some pretty strong finishes up here. Not necessarily your winner, he's a little bit further down here. Still positive, but a third, a top 20, a top 10, some middlings, so decent. You got a 9.9 here. Greens, however, 11.1, and I would say a little bit stronger, I guess. Maybe a little bit more top heavy, because I don't think good drives had a missed cut this high. Yeah, the missed cut is down here a little further. I don't know, that one's pretty close, but greens has the bigger number at 11.1. We move to 2021 and their driving statistics that year. Now, your winner was negative in terms of distance and in greens, but it's Patrick Reed. He's more of a fairway finder in terms of a driver. But again, only 3 negative in terms of driving distance. Good drives gained, a bit more suspect. 4 were negative there, 3 negative in greens. If we sort on the distance, again, decent little bit of cut making. You do have a missed cut from Cameron Champ, and then some pretty strong correlation right after him. Zalatoris, Lonto Griffin, Xander a little bit further down here. Good drives. It's fairly strong. You don't have a missed cut until Hank Lebioda all the way down here. So good drives, pretty strong. I mean, you do have some clunkers. You can Kelly Craft and Ricky Fowler. Granted, they're making the cut, not to the strongest of finishes, but decent correlation here in 2021. And a 10.2 is the highest there. Greens, it's a 10.6. And about really the same amount of correlation, maybe even a little bit stronger, because you don't have as many clunker made cuts. You got Cameron Percy, 48th, 53rd from Roger Sloan. So I would say it's probably a slight lean towards the greens in regulation. Again, that would make sense. Torrey Pines South, their greens are a bit smaller than the tour average. Torrey Pines North is right at tour average for green sizes. But Torrey Pines South is such a long course. If you're hitting the green in regulation, you are gaining. You're gaining on the field, essentially. You're gaining an opportunity at least. So, for the players in the field this week since the start of 2022. Let's look at scoring difficult to start, but there's a couple of different ways I think I want to look at this. So we're going to look at good drives and greens, but I'm going to focus on greens and regulation. I think that is the more important of the two, I think. So when a round is difficult, your top greens and regulation game players have been Alex Smalley, Xander, John Rahm, Adam Schenk, Sungjae, Tony Finau, Brendan Steele, Taylor Pendrith, Patrick Rogers, Will Zalatoris, and Cameron Champ. Scrolling across, you have Alex Smalley, Xander, Adam Schenk, Sungjae, Tony Finau, and Brendan Steele, all top 10 in good drives gained as well. And then John Rahm is an honorable mention. He is 12th in good drives, 3rd in greens when a round is difficult. But there are a lot of ways that I want to look at this. And while I have the difficult filter selected, I do want to look at some scrambling. So your top scramblers when a round is difficult since the start of 2022 has been Sebastian Munoz, Bill Hawes, James Hahn, Sungjae, Tony Finau, Taylor Montgomery, Wyndham Clark, Austin Cook, Dylan Fratelli, and Eric Cole. Interesting to see, some of these players have not played this event very well. Sebastian Munoz has not played this event very well. Dylan Fratelli not played this event very well, while others have played it extremely well. Tony Finau, granted only 1 year, but Taylor Montgomery finished 11th here last year. I believe Wyndham Clark has played this event fairly well. So interesting to see that mix of players for scrambling when it's difficult. I'm also going to look at long rough, because this tournament historically keeps the rough long, and with the amount of rain California has had, the director of agronomy mentioned in the notes in the GCSA tournament fact sheet that he thinks the course is going to play longer and thicker. So your top greens and regulation players in long rough since the start of 2022 have been Tony Finau, Brendan Steele, Will Zalatoris, John Rahm, Matthew Neesmith, Xander, Taylor Pendrith, Justin Thomas, Hayden Buckley, Aaron Rai, and Party Marty Laird. And if we look across here, and we'll just sort on it, your top scramblers in long rough since the start of 2022. Tony Finau, James Hahn, Kevin Streelman, Tyler Duncan, Adam Hadwin, Sam Yulno, Sahith Theegala, Austin Cook, Patrick Rogers, and Hideki Matsuyama. So Tony Finau, very adept at playing out of long rough. I see some other players here that have popped. Adam Hadwin has now popped a few times. I think this might be the first time we've mentioned Hideki tonight. Saying You'll Know was there for some around the green metrics and now scrambling in long rough. Sahith Theegala, this might be the first time we've mentioned him tonight. And then finally, with these two different metrics, let's take a look at some course length filters. So your top greens and regulation players when a course is long since the start of 2022 has been Alex Smalley, Aaron Rai, Henrik Norlander, Johnny Vegas, John Rahm, David Lingmerth, Colin Morikawa, Taylor Pendrith, Bryce Garnett, JJ Spawn, and Hank Lebiota. And then looking at some scrambling when a course is long, Kevin Streelman, Kevin Tway, Peter Malnati, Patrick Rogers, Bo Hostler, William McGirt, Scott Piercy, Aaron Baddeley, Brendan Steele, and Gary Woodland. So Streelman's been up here a couple times for some scrambling. Rogers has been up here for some scrambling. Aaron Baddeley. Gary Woodland, generally playing his best golf on long courses. There's also another name to keep in mind tonight and tomorrow as you think about wagers and lineups. All right, let's go back and look at some. Let's look at some proximity before we move to specific par 3s, 4s, and 5s. And last night in Microsoft Excel, we noted the importance of the 200 plus. So again, I will highlight the top 15. Only 2 players were negative from that length, and only one was horrendously negative. Siwoo Kim was very close to field average over 4 days from 200 plus. Total procs, you got some pretty good performances in here. 150 to 175 maybe. If we sort like total procs, that actually looks somewhat strong. Luke List was 3rd in total procs. Okay, that looks fairly strong. Let's look at 200 plus. Yeah, when you get into some specific ranges of proximities and you have, top 20s, top 25s, and some upper echelon finishes, that's actually fairly strong. I know it doesn't look like it. That's actually fairly strong in terms of when you're looking at a specific length of proximity. Let's look at 2021 and go to proximity. Again, the top 15, just due to ties. Again, only 2 negative from 200 plus. And you had some pretty solid performances in total procs. Yeah, just pretty strong here. Again, similar to last year's. And if we sort on the 200 plus, a lot of the same as last year's. The top 10, the top 30, top 10, top 20s, mixed in with some clunkers and some middling finishes. But that's actually still, again, fairly strong before you hit a missed cut from Kadira. So, your top, it's a good thing I checked because I still had filter on as Fantasy National struggles. Your top 200 plus proximity players since the start of 2022 have been Gary Woodland, Xander, Sungjae, Max Homa, Austin Smotherman, Kurt Kitayama, Alex Smalley, Austin Eckroat, Matthias Schmid, and Marty Doe. So again, Gary Woodland, anytime on a long course, generally plays those very well. Xander, his propensity to contend in majors, those are generally long courses. Sungjae the same. Alex Smalley, very good with long irons. So not a lot of surprise here, but you do get a couple of names to perhaps think about in terms of Korn Ferry Tour grads. Austin Eckroat, Matthias Schmid, Marty Doe. Dean Burmester is also in the top 15 down here. So interesting stuff there. Let's move to par 3s, 4s, and 5s. Par 3 efficiency. We noted earlier that the majority of the par 5, 7 of the 8 par 3s, I almost said par 5s, 7 of the 8 par 3s measure to the 2 longest lengths here. You have 4, no, was that right? Yes, 4 from 200 to 225 across both courses. You have 3 225 plus across both courses. The top number in terms of total strokes gained par 3 is a 5.9, but it wasn't, leading to a whole lot of leaderboard success. Let's see, we have a 5.2, but not a lot of success there. 225 plus, only a 1.9. So the biggest number absolutely was in the 200 to 225, but you didn't have a lot of strong correlation here, which is interesting to see, especially when you sort on total par 3 versus the leaderboard, the actual leaderboard. But you did only have 2 players that were negative in terms of total par 3s. So a little bit, I don't want to say confusing, contradictory maybe between these, because you only have one that's negative in 175 to 200. Okay. Let's move to 2021, see if we can't iron out some solid information here or make it clear as mud. 2021 doesn't look to have any strong correlation at all. Now the players that did or that were negative in par 3s were slightly negative. Okay, but your winner was only a 0.6 in terms of total. If you sort on it, you've got some clunkers here, but otherwise some pretty strong success around it. If you can overlook the 3 clunker of made cuts there, pretty strong success around it. Okay, you got a 3.9, a 2.0. But it's also interesting to note that on the scorecard, you don't have any par 3s that measure here or here. So this is clearly when they're moving tees and pins around and stuff, but you have 0 that measure at these 2 lengths, and yet we're getting data for it. I think Microsoft Excel will iron out exactly what we're needing to look at, but since we are here in Fantasy National, making sure I don't have any filters going, your top total par 3 performers in the past 13-ish months have been Max Homa, Will Zalatoris, Cam Davis, Xander, Stephan Jaeger, Adam Hadwin, Taylor Pendrith, Colin Morikawa, Scott Stallings, and Siwoo Kim. Going and looking across here, like Will Zalatoris is top 30 in both of the long range par 3s, so that's very good. Taylor Pendrith is top 20 in both, very good. Colin Morikawa is number 1 from 200 to 225 and then 26th, so damn near top 25. That's strong. You got Hideki is top 25 in both of the long par 3 ranges, and Nick Hardy is, I'll be kind and say top 30, 31st in the longest, but damn near top 30. So there's some names for you in terms of par 3s. Par 4s, I'm going to save a little bit of time with you all. The majority of the par 4s here fall between 450 and 500. 55% across both courses go from 450 to 500. And you can see your winner last year, Luke List, dominated them. He actually wasn't the leader in them, but he played them extremely well. Austin Smotherman just played all of the par 4s very well, minus the long, difficult par 4. But sorting on the leaderboard, again, top 15 from last year. Nobody negative in terms of strokes gained par 4. You look at the 450 to 500, really only one was negative a bunch. A couple of minus 0.4s and a minus 0.7. And we saw Austin Smotherman's 8.6. Luke List's 8.3. Coming back to 2021, again, the top 15, just due to ties, nobody negative in terms of par 4s. Now, the 450 to 500, you had some players that were negative, but just, again, reemphasize, make sure you look at what exactly the numbers are. These are negative 0.1, so really you only had 2 that were negative from 450 to 5. Nick Hardy has the record at a par 3 course a few times. That won't show up on Fantasy National. I'll tell you what, Nick Hardy I'm very, very high on for this year. I was really high on him coming off of the Corn Ferry Tour last year. Didn't realize he was dealing with injury early last year. So I think he's going to be pretty darn solid this year. I don't know if the Farmers is a good fit for him, but I think he's going to have a pretty solid season. But no, you are correct. That will not show up on Fantasy National with the par 3 only course. Believe me, if I could put my handicap for golf taking par 3 courses, we're looking good. I could be somebody. When you get a driver in my hand, I hit it a long way. It's just not a long way straight. But yeah, coming back to the par 4s from 2021, 6.3 being the highest, and it was your winner. 450 to 5 is the length that we're going to focus on this week at the Farmers. So, your top par 4 performers from 450 to 500 yards have been Jon Rahm, Tony Finau, Sung Jae, Maverick McNeely, Max Homa, Sebastian Munoz, Justin Thomas, Hayden Buckley, Sam Stevens, Xander, and Aaron Rai. Aaron Rai, somebody that I'm fairly high on this week after his T6 last year. Hayden Buckley, also another name to consider. And then the usual suspects here, Maverick McNeely, California kid, probably enjoys playing POA greens, Sung Jae, Tony Finau, Jon Rahm, all that. And just to round out the thought or story time from a couple of minutes ago, played on the indoor simulator last week. It did not like my driver. It was bad. It was really bad. But I got to say I played St. Andrews, so might not have had the true weather conditions of St. Andrews, but I got to at least say I played the course. Kicked my ass. Let's go to par 5s, and again, there's going to be pretty much one length that we're going to look at, I believe. Do you favor North or South course golfers on Wednesday? AJ, thanks for jumping in chat. I tell you what, let me go through the par 5s here, and I admit to look at Windfinder, so you bringing that up will be a very good segue into that, because I need to look at Windfinder to be able to answer that question. But thanks for jumping in chat. Really appreciate it. Good question. So if we just quickly looking at the par 5s here, again, a re-emphasis that 3 par 5s are from 500 to 550 at the North course, and then 3 across both courses here, and then 2 here. So fairly balanced, although I imagine the most important range will be the 550 to 600. That would be a guess. But if we look across the leaderboards, you got a 7.6, again from Aaron Rai, another reason why I'm pretty high on him this week. He generally plays par 5s very well, and you see the length that I think is the most important here, 550 to 6. He played extremely well. So you had a 4.4 there, 3.4, a little bit less correlation, 600 to 650. Some very strong finishes, but you also had a lot of missed cuts up here. So the strongest correlation was the 550 to 6, at least in terms of last year's leaderboard. You had to come all the way down to Keith Mitchell before you had a missed cut of the players who played the 550 to 600 par 5s well. And then if we look very quickly at the 2021 leaderboard. Par 5. Again, they're going to be important. You're going to have to take advantage of them, especially over at the North Course. 8.6, and oh my goodness, look at that. Oh my. That is some of the strongest correlation I've seen for par 5s. No one here finished outside the top 30 that I've highlighted. So what's this, about 12 to 15 golfers? That's showing you the emphasis of par 5s at the Farmers. 550 to 6. The top was a 4.5. He was also the winner of the tournament. You had a 4.7. Not nearly a strong correlation, though. So par 5s and 550 to 6 is where I'm leaning in terms of par 5 efficiency. So let's look at that very, very quickly, and then we'll run to Windfinder. So since the start of 2022, your top par 5 performers have been Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Xander, Max Homa, Dean Burnmaster, Kyle Westmoreland, Stefan Jaeger, Johnny Vegas, John Rahm, and Cam Davis. And if we scroll across, looking specifically at the 550 to 6, Justin Thomas, top 10. You have Kyle Westmoreland, Stefan Jaeger, Johnny Vegas, and Cam Davis. All of those guys are both top 10 in terms of total par 5s and the par 5s 550 to 6. Give an honorable mention to Max Homa here, top 15 at the specific length of par 5s. Give a honorable mention here to Will Zalatoris. He's 9th in the specific range, 11th in total. Cameron Champ, honorable mention. Tony Finau and Taylor Pendrith, I would say, are honorable mentions. Eric Cole's probably, to be fair to him, an honorable mention as well. Top 20 in both total and specific length. So that's the way I'm looking at par 5s for this week. To AJ's question, let's go to Windfinder and see if we can quickly discern what kind of favor, if any, that we see. There's Torrey Pines. Aha. Again, apologies for that. All right, so let's go by the wind right on the golf course. And again, this is the forecast for a couple of days out. So it probably will change. Lived in La Jolla for summer during college. Love the San Diego area. I am quite jealous. I've heard that the weather there is generally perfect year-round, minus what they've gotten this year in terms of rain. Let's take a look at the super forecast. We might be able to get something here. So Wednesday looks perfect in terms of all the way around here. Very light wind, light gust. Now chilly, so the ball won't travel as far. So do make note of that. Don't think the super forecast is available for Thursday just yet. So looking at Thursdays, you get, it looks like a slight bit of a wind direction change, and it warms up. So without, I don't think anybody has a favor Wednesday, at least based on the forecast, 36 hours in advance. But based on Thursdays, if I said Thursday, I meant Wednesday over here. But based on Thursdays, it looks like there is a severe, and I mean a severe, favor for players that are playing in the morning. So what I would say is that anybody playing in the afternoon, especially on the South Course, is going to be in for a very rough time. So, and again, 36 hours in advance, weather we know won't change at all. But to your question, AJ, it looks like I would prefer a in all things in a vacuum, Wednesday afternoon south course, Thursday morning north course. Although, if it indeed is a Wednesday north, like Wednesday afternoon north and Thursday morning south course, I don't think that's terrible either, so long as they're getting the majority of their round in before the winds hit. Even if you're on the north course, this wind looks pretty diabolical, so I would want to avoid that as best I can, because I don't see too much of a favor wind-wise on Wednesday, which means on Wednesday the players at the north course should just light it up. But if there's no wind, I would think the south course it would be okay to play, and then you really take advantage of the north course in the morning on Thursday. Still prefer south over north even if you are playing showdown on Wednesday. So on Wednesday I think I would prefer the north on a round one showdown only, because I don't see anything of an AM PM split here, and the north course is notoriously much easier than the south course. Notoriously easier. So again, all things in a vacuum, all other things being equal, I would think I would want to take players on the north course for a round one showdown on Wednesday. But in terms of a full week lineup, I think ideally you're going to want to go a Wednesday PM, Thursday AM. I think I would probably prefer the Thursday morning B north course, although if it is south course, it shouldn't be too bad. But I'm avoiding this like it went out of style yesterday, the day before yesterday. Like this looks awful. So hopefully that answers your question, AJ. Like I said, with wind, with weather, unless you are filling out your lineup 30 minutes before you start, it's kind of hard to say. Who's to say that this wind actually does happen or whatnot? But based on what I'm seeing, that's what I would go with, especially for filling out lineups tomorrow. We are running a little bit over time. I do want to go to Microsoft Excel, so let's do that very quickly. This is the early look file. That is not the file I wanted to show first, unfortunately. So let me bring up what I wanted to look up first, which is the comparison course. Let's go to the evaluation tab here. I'll close this out before I confuse myself, because it will happen. All right. So for the farmers, we looked at a little bit of this last night, but we'll go through it again very quickly. It looks like there isn't a massive broad category that looks important. They're all negative in terms of in relation to full field course averages. But again, a reminder that the around the green had a very low outlier here. So this is going to bump it up really darn close to course average, and it's astronomically more important in relation to the other broad strokes gained categories here at Torrey Pines. So we're definitely going to be looking at around the green. I'm just a strokes gained approach preferred player, and that actually looks like a little bit of a low outlier as well. So I'm going to have some strokes gained approach, some strokes gained around the green. But again, driving distance, big factor. We're going to be looking at driving distance in the mixed condition model. Greens looks like it's not that big of a deal. There was a very low outlier in there. So that bumps it up to 7.5% more important. Good drives gained also has a very low outlier. So we're going to be looking at greens, maybe even good drives and greens, but I'm thinking just greens in regulation for that. You see eagles and birdies. Again, I'd be interested to hear from you all. Put it in the comments or in chat. Do you think eagles, looking at eagles alone, has any merit? I'm still thinking it's just birdies are better gained. Because eagles are pretty darn rare. They only happen on the North Course, really. And the North Course is only played one time. So I'm thinking it's just birdies are better gained. But it is absolutely birdies gained more so than bogeys avoided in terms of scoring. Par threes, you got 8% more important from 200 to 225. Now the 225 says 65%, but not every course has a 225 plus. So if we go to the actual numbers, you've got a 0.4 and a 0.38. So yeah, they're roughly the same in terms of actual importance, and that's a very low outlier. So I think I was correct in terms of looking at just the 200 to 225. See, it's 30% more important. So I think any par 3 emphasis will be in the 200 to 225. Although we saw from the previous leaderboards that there were par 3s in lengths of all of these. So maybe some total par 3 is needed as well. Kind of going back and forth with myself on that one. I can see it both ways as of right now, and I better make up my mind up in the next 24 hours so I can make my mixed condition model. But I'm kind of having a battle with myself there. We see in the par 4s, it's all in the 450 to 500. A 2.0, which is literally half of your strokes gained in par 4s, is coming from 450 to 500. So we're going to be focused solely on the 450 to 5. 45% more important than other full field course averages. Nothing else is close to even course average. And then finally, par 5s and then proximity par 5s. Very important. So we're going to look at par 5s in probably a number of different ways. That's a very big number compared to other courses. I thought it would be the 550 to 600. Maybe not so. Maybe it's just total par 5s. That's very, very possible. It could be just total par 5s. And then finally, just to round out this portion, Prox 200, 10% more important. So we're absolutely going to be looking at some 200 plus proximity this week. The total Prox looked good, but it's actually 7% less important than the full field course average. So looks like we're just going to be looking at 200 plus. All right, next to last thing. I know we're running a little bit over on time. Next to last thing I want to show you all is the early look file. This is the performance of each player, specifically at the Farmers Insurance in the past 5 years. So you can see Jon Rahm, past 5 years. He's had an average finish of a 9th. He's averaged 3.3 off the tee in those 5 years. There are a few categories I think is going to be very important to see who has traditionally played this event well. So let's start with around the green. We'll start with around the green. You see Bill Hawes. No flashy finishes, but he is 5 for 5 in making the cut here. No missed cuts in the past 5 years. He is 5 for 5, only an average finish of 53rd, but if you're trying to get a 6-6 through, that's a name to consider. He's been very good around the green. He has not done it with the irons or the putter. Off the tee has been exactly field average, but he's been getting around the green, or getting around Torrey Pines with around the green, and it's worked for him. Justin Rose, a former champion here in 2019, doing a lot of around the green. Jason Duffner, Now, this doesn't surprise me. Aaron Baddeley is a short game player, but he has not had a lot of success here. Tony Finau, very balanced approach to Torrey Pines, but his highest has been in and around the green. Sung Kang has actually played here fairly well. 3 for 4. Adam Hadwin, Will Zalatoris. So there's some players that have been doing very well around the green, and only because I caught it out of the corner of my eye. Look at Hideki. He's 5 for 5. Average finish inside the top 30. Very, very, very rare when Hideki is positive in putting. And he has traditionally been positive in putting here at the Farmers Insurance. Hideki might be fairly sneaky. Again, I have not looked at any ownerships, anything like that. That's going to be saved for tomorrow. But I imagine Hideki might be a bit sneaky. It's very rare that you see him positive in putting. Let's take a look at distance. Definitely want to take a look at distance and in greens. So we'll sort with driving distance. The players that have performed the best in driving distance here at the Farmers: Taylor Pendrith, a 16th last year. Cameron Champs, 2 for 4. There's Luke List, your defending champion, 5 for 5. Average finish of a top 20. Solid. Gary Woodland has played this event very well. Will Gordon, Joseph Bramlett, Will Zalatoris, there's John Rahm. For as much as Kevin Tway is not a bomber, look here, he's got positive driving distance here. And he's played well. Jason Day, a former 2-time winner here. Tony Finau, Wyndham Clark, Justin Rose, Lanto Griffin. These guys, what do they all have in common? They're pretty long off the tee. The exception of Kevin Tway. He must be hitting driver when everybody else is hitting 3-wood. But he still has positive in terms of driving distance. I do want to look at greens, and then we'll look at a par 3 and a par 4 and a par 5 maybe, if we have time. Your leader in greens, Aaron Rai. He did it all last year. That's why he finished 6th. There's Will Zalatoris. Played this event very, very, very well. Luke List again, John Rahm, Will Gordon, Ryan Palmer. Don't sleep on Ryan Palmer this week. Don't sleep on Keegan Bradley this week. He's 4 for 4 here at the Farmers with an average finish of a top 30. There's Tony Finau again, Sung Jae, Joseph Bramlett. I do want to show you my previous year's mixed condition model. So let's just look at par 5s and then 200 plus. So your top par 5 performers in the past 5 years here at Torrey Pines. Again, Lanto Griffin, who's played it well. Jason Day, Taylor Montgomery, 3.3 last year alone. Luke List, Gary Woodland, Will Zalatoris. You're seeing these same names pop on all of these metrics. Ryan Palmer, Joseph Bramlett, Sung Jae, John Rahm, Max Homa, etc. Of these players, it actually is surprising. It looks like it's the 500 to 550. Okay. Let's do the top 20 here. This is a 1.3. This is a 1.1. And that is a 0.6. Okay, so thinking about it, 3 of the 4 par 5s at the North Course fall into this range, this 500, 550. So I imagine a lot of these players are taking advantage of those par 5s. I said surprising. Now you kind of think about it. All right, makes some sense. Last thing I want to sort for you all, the 200 plus procs. See who's been the best at 200 plus procs. Specifically here at the Farmers in the past 5 years. Alex Smalley, but it was just 1 year. Camilo Villegas, 2 for 2. Again, oh shucks. Damn it. Not a finish to be inspired about, but he is 2 for 2. Cameron Percy, the same, 2 for 2. And then you're starting to get your same names again. Will Zalatoris. There's Justin Rose, Joseph Bramlett, Lanto Griffin, Sung Kang. There's Colin. He's only played it 1 time in the past 5 years. Gary Woodland. So there's a look at some of the players that have performed the best at specific metrics. I will sort this on the finish and let you all take another quick gander at that. Last thing I'm going to pull up is last year's mixed condition model. Give it a quick rating or a quick run through, see what we can improve on and what we can, what kind of percentages we're going to get back, because I'm not going to do anything in terms of strokes gained total. So last year, I'd say this is a pretty darn good model. Like I said, I hit Luke List at 75 to 1 last year, so I mean something worked. He was 12th in my rankings. You look at the top 15 in my rankings, only 3 missed the cut. So again, trying to be objective, this does feel like it was a very strong mixed condition model, considering the number of top 20s. I had the winner, the playoff runner-up, and 2 top 3s in my top 15. So I was spread out all over the place last year. It looks like I had 10% in difficult. So there's 10% I'm getting back. But that seemed to have worked. I only had 10% in approach, but I did have 10% in around the green as well. 10% in greens, difficult to par. Okay. 10% 450 to 500. Again, a lot of these same metrics we're looking at. 10% in par 5s total. Okay. 5% on long courses. So there's 15% I'm getting back from the totals. 5% in fast POA. I think it's probably okay to put 5% in putting, but I'm probably going to have to go with fast and lightning POA. I did look at both last year, birdies and bogeys. If I do that again this year, I would think I need to bump this up to birdies gained. Or, shoot. I would need to bump this up to 10% for the birdies gained. I looked at distance. I looked at scrambling when it's difficult. 200 plus and par 4s. Funny, odd that I didn't do anything with par 3s. Huh. So I think that might be a slight omission. Probably need to do something with par 3s this year. But other than that, it looks like I might have a pretty wide or a metric-filled mixed condition model where 10%, maybe 15% is the highest percentage in one particular stat. So I definitely wanted to show you last year's mixed condition model, see how I fared. Looks pretty good, so I'll probably copy as much of this, maybe not straight copy, but there's 15% I am getting back because I'm not doing anything in strokes gained total. But otherwise, a lot of these same metrics that we've been talking about, and it produced pretty good results last year. So again, I will leave you off with the early look file and the historical production that each player has had at the Farmers. P and AJ, thanks a lot for jumping into chat. Really appreciate it. Good questions. Really enjoyed that. Reminder, I will be live tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, over on Twitch. I will be finalizing my mixed condition model, or I'm saying I'm finalizing. I'll be working on my mixed condition model. And then tomorrow night, it's going to be late. And make sure you give me a follow on social media to know when exactly I'm going live. But I will be live late tomorrow night after my fantasy golf draft to do the DFS Tactics show, because our lineups are due Wednesday morning. So thanks again to everyone who tunes in and watches and listens, supports the channel by subscribing, leaving comments, joining chat, liking videos. I always appreciate the support. I can't thank you all enough. I love going through golf analytics with the idea of, or the goal of winning some money. But I love being able to math nerd out with you all. So glad you all enjoy it and are able to take something from it. For all of the wagers that you've made so far this week for the Farmers, for all of the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Farmers, and until I see you tomorrow night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.